Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another Quran study. Uh, Today we'll be reading from Surah 10, Jonah, starting at verse 3. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, mashallah, we got you now.
Yeah, mashallah, I joined the Wi-Fi, that's why.
Oh, awesome. Assalamu alaikum. That's good.
Assalamu
Okay, cool. Mashallah.
Oh, wow.
Okay, we'll be starting at verse 3 today, God willing. And reading from Surah 10, verse 3. Verse 3, your only Lord is God, the one who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then assumed all authority. He controls all matters. There is no intercessor except in accordance with his will. Such is God, your Lord. You shall worship him. Would you not take heed? To him is your ultimate return, all of you. This is God's truthful promise. He initiates the creation and repeats it in order to reward those who believe and lead a righteous life equitably. As for those who disbelieve, they incur hellish drinks and a painful retribution for the disbelieving. Mashallah. So, we see here, and let me zoom in. He created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and assumed all authority. And he also, coming from, anybody that has read the previous scriptures, it's good to point this out here. It also, excuse me, this is what makes one of the many reasons why, the Quran is infallible, because there's no nonsense, there's no falsehood in it, because there's the blasphemy, probably inserted by the Jews, because the unrighteous Jews, of course, because there are righteous Jews, but the distorted the scripture and said in the Old Testament that God rested on the seventh day, which even never sat with me right. Growing up hearing this stuff, he's God, he doesn't God be glorified. But we can see here in the Quran how he created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and assumed all authority, and then we have other verses, never a moment of unawareness or slumber overtakes him. And then also the verse that no fatigue touched God or the angels, not even no fatigue. We're talking about our solar system, the galaxy, the billions of galaxies, and then just our innermost universe, and then we have other, and no fatigue touched them. So we can see, like, why would people, especially coming into submission, want to gravitate towards a book? If it's for a purpose, for referencing, or we have verses that do align with the Quran, that's fine. But as far as your source of religious guidance, it should be the Quran alone. It's also a way. Only the appreciative are actually going to appreciate this. And be happy with the Quran alone when it comes to the religion and being God willing a successful submitter, and meaning successful being like the success in this life and the hereafter, growing the soul and returning to God. And this is a good question. There's no intercessors, and would you not take heed? So just looking at the stars and all these other amazing creations, the moon that's floating or being held up, it's being held up by God, the sun, and all these other heavenly bodies, and things throughout the creation. No human being could create that. Not Jesus, not Muhammad. So naturally, it should really get people to think about these things. But it's because people, idol worshippers, they have doubts about these things. They don't believe in the hereafter. They don't. Uh, they refuse to take heed for whatever reasons. A lot of different reasons: ego, social pressure. So they pass by all these proofs, that we can look at, and to Him is our ultimate return, and this is God's truthful promise. So this is the absolute truth, and it's the day of judgment is most certainly gonna happen. And there's a nice verse. Those hoping to meet God should know that a meeting will most certainly take place. So it's and we have this. He initiates the creation, and then repeats it in order to reward those who believe and lead a righteous life equitably. So maybe we could talk more about this part too. Perhaps how a new heavens and earth will be created. That's in Surah 14. So maybe that's what it could be referencing to. In order to reward those who believe and lead a righteous life. So basically, the people are fortunate enough, the humans and jinns are fortunate enough to make it. That's There's going to be a new creation, of course, after the day of judgment, and when God comes back to the earth and everything's wiped out. The earth is leveled. And as for those who disbelieve, they incur hellish drinks and a painful retribution for the disbelief. So this is a consequence of their disbelieving. And the Most High, the Most Great. I mean, just looking at pictures, or of the galaxies, the stars, or even looking at sea creatures or birds, and all these, or even ourselves, or just looking at some animation on how something so small like organ system works in our body. And there's he's taking care of all of these things for every single creature, not just humans, but bugs, but animals. Without the least effort either, with no fatigue, touches God. So disbelieving in this and His greatness and His omnipotence, and that He possesses all power is, it really is deserving of hell, because it's it's the worst. It goes back to the original crime. Unappreciative, and it's not coming here and correcting. We're here to correct ourselves. We came back. God gave us another chance to come back to school, so to speak, if you want to think of it that way. And He gave us the Quran, our guidance, and our book for the eternal life. And so we should really put all our effort. God should be our only priority in our life. Nothing else should, because everything else will vanish. So naturally, just like the messenger explained it, it's in the Quran too. We should do 0 for the body and 100% for the soul. And so even though we can, if we're drinking something, some tea, or exercising, we can be thinking about God. We can be listening, to good music that reminds us of God, or we can also be exercising to, to also stay active and fit and in good condition, to be able to do things, like in the cause of God, or, this helps us make God our God. This is the right perspective we have to have, even when we're doing our work. There's really no excuse. Like everything, anything we can be doing, we should make it associated with God, or it should remind us of God one way or another, or doing it in the cause of God. Because after all, he gave us all these things, and our eyes, our hands, and ears to enjoy the music, to look at, like a cute squirrel or something, and all these other things. So he is the one who rendered the sun radiant and the moon a light, and he designed its phases that you may learn to count the years and to calculate. God did not create all this except for a specific purpose. He explains the revelations for people who know. Surely, in the alternation of night and day and what God created in the heavens and the earth, there are proofs for people who are righteous. So, mashallah, again, we have more proofs, about the sun radiant like a lamp and the moon a light. And this is true. This is actually a scientific miracle. How the sun is, it does radiate light as a lamp. It's also referred to a lamp in another part of the Quran, another verse. And the moon is a light, because it reflects the sun's light. If you ever been out like in a remote area or something where there's not a lot of artificial lights or street lights, etc., but there's a full moon, you can actually, once your eyes adjust, it's actually pretty bright, and you can see fairly well outside too. Now, of course, like on crescent moon, you're not going to be able to see too well, but it is a light. And I mean, all the phases that he's designed for us that we could calculate the phases of different times of the year and use as calculation devices. These are blessings. I mean, this is precision, and this is a evidence and proof of a design, right? One of his names is the designer, the creator. So these are proofs, as the next verse 6 says, for people who take heed, people who will reflect on these things and believe, and say, like, our Lord, you did not create all this in vain. Um, like there's a purpose for all this, and then we have this in the final testament that comes with proof, that it's from God. Preoccupation with this world. Those who are not expecting to meet us and are preoccupied with this worldly life and are content with it and refuse to heed our proofs, these have incurred hell as their ultimate abode and as a consequence of their own works. So this is a fairly common tragedy that we see. I mean, with people. I mean, even ourselves before being submitters. I mean, we can assume pretty much everyone is. If you're not worshiping God alone, if you're not submitting, willfully and cheerfully to His absolute authority, you believe that God is running everything. I mean, these are things we really have to, if we want to be saved. You can believe in God, but if you don't believe He's doing everything, you're gonna end up in hell. I mean, this is so serious, because this constitutes. If you think other people are doing other things, or you attribute any power to anybody, that's by definition, as the messenger said, it's shirk. It's idol worship. You know, um, repeatedly, the messenger, towards the end of his life here on this earth, before he departed, he emphasized how important. He said he's come to the conclusion why most people who believe in God, the reason the reason why those verses are he said are the conclusion he came to is because they don't believe God is doing everything. He said the believer that believes that God is running everything and comes to this unshakable conclusion, that's the believer that won't end up in hell. So this has to be, if we want to be saved, we have to take this like with we have to focus and constantly work on ourselves, and sometimes we might forget, but we have to at least keep moving forward in a positive direction. But also, verse 7 and 8, it's because we all made the covenant that we were going to worship God alone, right, and not worship Satan. And people who are preoccupied with this worldly life, they're basically worshiping the illusion, right? They could be worshiping people, money, materials, their job, or whatever else. And I mean, that's basically everybody. Anybody who's not submitting to God alone. I mean, you can see that they're doing this, but also, we have to read the verse in full. It says, "Refuse to eat our proofs." I mean, people, as with many of us, at one point in our lives, we were also like in the days of ignorance, like we were not, we weren't submitters, but so people were adamant on refusing, to the Quran's mathematical miracle of the proof, so they get continuous reminders, and also are content. I mean, I've met people like this, like personally in my life that were and it's nothing to be upset about, because if God knows any, and they could still be guided depending on if you determine if they're destined for hell or not. But it's not a decision taken lightly either, as we know. But if they deserve to be guided, then God will guide them. But this is why it's so important to keep our priorities and think about these things. Like the 50 to 100 years, right? And how everything's an illusion. Um, and it's all gonna pass. It's like all the allegories in the Quran about uh, how God sends down water from the sky to revive a dead land, and then brings all types of beautiful plants. I mean, just like all these adornments and all these nice things, and that we ourselves use, but we're worshiping God. We're thanking Him for our cell phone and our applications and stuff we're using to remember God. We're thanking Him for the tea or juice we drink or the steak we eat, you know. But as for the disbelievers or the people who are, totally preoccupied, and they're gonna, just like the verse continues, I mean, in essence, it says, just as it's adorned in the people's eyes, our judgment comes by night or day, and it wipes it all out. I mean, there's examples about these things that God has created, the seasons, like dead lands being revived and then everything turning into hay. And it's the same with his worldly life. So, I mean, so it's, but, as we know from the Quran, the ones who um, are gonna, the ones who appreciate this are gonna reflect on it. They're not just gonna pass by it heedlessly. Uh, But it's not saying there's anything special about any of us either, because there's not. It's only out of God's mercy. I mean, we're truly fortunate, and it's out of God's mercy that, and God willing, we stay on the right path. Um, there's nothing special about any of us. Um, it's out of God's compassion and His mercy that He helps us, and it continues to help us, God willing. Verse 9, God guides the believers. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, their Lord guides them by virtue of their belief. Rivers will flow beneath them in gardens of bliss. Their prayer therein is, "Be you glorified, our God." Their greeting therein is peace. And their ultimate prayer is, "Praise be to God, Lord of the universe." Uh, yeah, so, mashallah, these are nice verses, and um, the people who submit to God completely. These are the people, as the verse says, God guides the believers, and lead a righteous life. Those who believe in God and lead a righteous life, and that's what our belief is going to be tested, and also lead a righteous life. Meaning, if we're a bad person or we're doing bad things. I mean, this isn't righteousness, and also, those who claim to believe, right, but they're falling in idol worship, or they're worshiping their ego, or they're, becoming preoccupied, as we just read in the previous verse, with these worldly materials. I mean, these are all tests for us, and to underestimate them is just we have to watch for that too, because Satan um, will come to us from so many angles, from all angles. So we have to implore God for help. We have to be hard on ourselves, examine ourselves if we want to, do well, and then full submission to God. There's happiness, because we're in His protection, and But as I was kind of talking about earlier, believing in God is only valid if you know all of God's qualities, namely that God is doing everything. Because if you think anybody else is doing anything, you're basically setting up that person as a God. You're giving them some. I mean, even thinking about it logically too. Or I mean, not logically, but just thinking more into it about really what's being said here and what was explained by our messenger. You're giving this person some type of power. You're basically saying that this person has the power to do something, and God be glorified. I was a lie, but to override what the Lord of the universe decrees or wills. You say, "Oh no, He did something." Like He made His own decision. He was able to do His own thing, and I mean, like thinking about this, this is not good, and it really makes sense. Why the messenger said it's shirk, And I mean, how often do we slip up and make these mistakes, or if we're not, um, watching our thoughts and stuff, we have to. But it does, with God's help, it will get easier in time as long as we're moving forward in the right direction. He did say too, we can forget, but He said we have to make this our zikr. He said this is the believer that won't go to hell. He said because all throughout the Quran, there's people who say they bear witness that God is their Lord, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. And then the verse says, "Say, why do you not comprehend or understand?" So this is the ultimate. This is, he said, the messenger said, this is the ultimate conclusion that God is doing everything. I mean, we're also given really good verses in the Quran, mashallah, about it wasn't you who threw it, it was God who threw it. So I mean, just like if we're, I don't know if we're throwing. I mean, God willing, we're doing it in the cause of God. But like if we're throwing a frisbee or something, I mean, we have to really. I mean, this is what it means to submit, because everything is submitting to Him, But the people who are unwillingly submitting um, are being distinguished from people who willfully and cheerfully submit, right? Submission. Um, that's the religion, right? And verse 10 is is praising God and being eternally grateful. And there's not any, there's only peace. There's no nonsense, as we see in other verses. There's no nonsense or negative news, or all these things that we come across, in the world, and sometimes that we have to deal with this stuff and face these things. Even though it may not be pleasant, but it's there's a reason. We have to stay informed, but we can see all the chaos, right? I mean, we opted for the demonstration, and the evidence is all around us for people who are miserable, um, because they're in Satan. They're Satan's constituents, right? So they're seeing part of that. They're seeing the demonstration happen themselves. If God hastened the retribution incurred by the people the way they demand provisions, they would have been annihilated long ago. However, we leave those who do not believe in meeting us in their transgressions blundering. So the way people are so quick to demand provisions and good things from God, if the wretched, if they, in the same way, if God, brought the retribution to these people in the same way, they're so quick to, demand provisions, they would have been wiped out. But um, as the rest of the verse says, we leave those who do not believe in meeting us in their transgressions blundering. So it's like let them play and enjoy for a little while until the day that uh, awaits them. You know, so I mean, it's really a unfortunate case for these people, and I mean, even for ourselves, we don't want to be with these people at all. We want to. We have the guidance. We've been so blessed to have the Quran, have the miracle, especially be from the earlier generation. We're at that almost at that end, and so we should do as much for ourselves and for others as we can in the cause of God. But you can see, the people that don't believe in the meeting, they don't believe in consequences, right? They don't like the idea of accountability. You see this with people who believe in intercession. They hate. I don't know. Maybe that hate is too strong of a word, but they have a strong disdain for anything accountable, and that's why you see them doing all the things they do, committing the atrocities, living like there's no tomorrow, YOLO. As the I mean, not just like young people, old people. I mean, in all places. I mean, we see it all around us. Ranging from on a local scale to the international scale. I mean, but it's evident that they don't believe. So that's why they're left blundering. So and then as far as us, we do our part. We disregard such people, and we spread the message, advocate for truth, and this is what we do. When adversity touches the human being, he implores us while lying down or sitting or standing up. But as soon as we relieve his adversity, he goes on as if he never implored us to relieve any hardship. The workers of the transgressors are thus adorned in our eyes. So this is like a profession of this is the I guess epitome of being unappreciative, right? It's I guess you could say this is like a bad weather friend, when adversity touches it, because it doesn't just say idol worship. I mean, human beings. So, this is in my understanding. This is in our nature to be like this, right? But once we, with God's help, and we come into submission and we change, but also, it's interesting too that there's that the very humans also implore God to relieve their adversity. So in a way, it's like they're bearing witness that there is a God, because why else would they be imploring God if they didn't believe, but as soon as they relieve his adversity, he goes on as if he never implored us to relieve any hardship. So yeah, I mean, it's just being unappreciative and forgetting about God and not believing in God. Even though they say they believe, they attribute probably their healing or anything else to their cleverness. You can see this with a lot of people, where they think all the money that they made is because of them, or they healed themselves or something, or they can, I mean, you got people even talking about spreading this garbage about tapping into your inner, God, and just this nonsense. I mean, but like the verse says, all this stuff is adorned in their eyes. So, lessons from the past, many a generation we have annihilated before you. When they transgressed, their messengers went to them with clear proofs, but they refused to believe. We thus were quite the guilty people. Now it is your turn. We made you inheritors of the earth after them to see how you will do. So there's good lessons from the past, as it's titled, as this verse is subtitled. How there's many generations. We're given the generation examples of, Moses' people, Pharaoh, Shuaib, the dwellers of the woods, dwellers of Rus, Noah, Lot, um, which in all these people came with messengers that went with them, that went with clear proofs, but the people refused to believe. So it's always the same. The guilty people are going to be annihilated. And I mean, as we're going to see soon. It's the same with the entire Arab world. How they not only refused to believe, but I mean, these people went out of their way to try to fight the message, fight the miracle. I mean, these are just some of the most evil people because I mean, it's like you have life-saving guidance and wisdom, the Quran, and this miracle, its purified message, and these people are like indirectly wanting everybody else to join them in hell, because they're trying to keep the message hidden, you know. Because I mean, it's the way, if following the Bible as it is today, you're not going to make it to heaven. I mean, if you follow like every, I mean, meaning you're following the distortions. And I mean, I've not met a single Christian. I've seen them a few online, but the point that I've seen a few online perhaps just follow Jesus' words only, but also they don't get the same credit. They don't have the contact prayers. They don't have all these things to feed the soul. And I mean, this is why the Quran is so great. And I mean, these people, the Arabs, I mean, we understand why they're being wiped out because they not only rejected it, but they actively fought it and trying to confuse people. They set the worst examples, um, for people, and so I mean, it's the same case. We have all the precedents. So, but also like the verse, in the sense, now it is your turn to be made you inheritors of the earth after them to see how you will do. So people who, I mean, I guess maybe we can say all of us. I mean, it's definitely referring to like people who, like the children of Israel, for example, inherited all the gold and stuff from Pharaoh's people. But what did they do with it? They bombed their test. They flunked it. With maybe except for a few of them towards the end, but they were also left by the end. They were left on the desert for 40 years, roaming the earth aimlessly. I mean, God was still so merciful too, even after their blasphemies with the golden calf and those other things. They still were given chances to come back. But most of them, as the verse says, most of them are wicked. Every letter calculated and divinely designed. When our revelations are recited to them, those who do not expect me to say, bring a Quran other than this or change it. Say, I cannot possibly change it on my own. I simply follow what is revealed to me. I fear if I disobey my Lord, the retribution of an awesome day. Say, had God willed, I would not have recited it to you, nor would I have known anything about it. I have lived among you a whole life before this. You have known me as a sane, truthful person. Do you not understand? MashaAllah. So we'll read the footnote for this, but this, I think, is referring to, there's 19 times the Quran is mentioned in the Quran, I believe, or is it multiple 19? But this was actually, let's just read the footnote. The word Quran is mentioned in the Quran 58 times, but since this verse refers to another Quran, it must be excluded. This Quran is mentioned in the Quran 57 times, 19 times 3. Okay, mashallah. So yeah, this is amazing. Just this facet of the miracle. Notice, what it's talking about and how it's saying bring a Quran other than this. So it's not talking about this, the Quran, the final testament, the master record that God has given us, given us as guidance, and that's a multiple of 19. So it's this Quran is mentioned 57 times, 19 times 3. Yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects and facets of the miracle. I mean, it's perfect. Say it. Okay, I read that already. Yes, I mean, we're just looking at verse 16 here that, that it nullifies, um, nullifies their excuses to disbelieve in it. And also, especially too, this person, uh, the messenger that comes has been a sane, truthful person the entire life. Like you've known him to be normal. And, and then do you not understand? Um, basically they don't have any legitimate reason to disbelieve in it except other than them just hating the truth or worshiping their egos or whatever. The list goes on with these people. Verse 17, who is more evil than one who fabricates lies about God or rejects his revelations? Certainly the transgressors never succeed. They worship beside God idols that possess no power to harm them or benefit them, and they say, these are intercessors that God. Say, are you informing God of something he does not know in the heavens and the earth? Be he glorified. He's the most high, far above needing partners. This verse applies. I mean, it's a pretty alarming verse in the sense like it applies to basically, all the entire Christian population. I mean, they're constantly lying about God, fabricate. I mean, who is more evil than these people? People are actually. I mean, they have to be more evil than your. Someone who doesn't, let's say, draw conclusions about God or is agnostic. I mean, these people that really promote the message. These leaders that spread their lies about God, whether they're imams or pastors. I mean, and they reject his revelations too, so they learn about the Quran or the miracle and they insist on rejecting the message, so these people won't succeed either. And as we're told in the next verse, they worship beside God idols that possess no power to harm them. And, they're saying, these are intercessors at God. I mean, uh, kind of goes back to the previous verse. They're lying about God because these are not intercessors. They're just making stuff up. They have no proof, behind what they're saying. Um, they don't have any proof. They're just making it up out of thin air. They're just repeating it from their parents. As we understand, it's a common tragedy. And this is a good question too. It says, are you informing of God of something he does not know in the heavens or the earth? It's just as if they're like trying to come up with their own truths and trying to play God, with a little g. It's very bad what they're doing. The people, verse 19, the people used to be one congregation. Then they disputed if it were not for a predetermined word from your Lord. They would have been judged immediately regarding their disputes. Yeah, so people who dispute the truth, right? Because the truth is the truth, and it doesn't need to be disputed. But I understand, people who dispute it and come up with their own, prioritize their opinions over the truth, um, are disputing and dividing themselves, right? And God is going to be the judge over these people's disputes, and that's it's a, if we really think about it, like everything we say to anybody, even to ourselves, obviously we should constantly seek refuge from the whispers of the devil. Um, but all the disputes are going to be judged. Everything is going to be brought. It's the reckoning. Everything is going to be accounted for. And that's also why we should constantly repent, like the example of David. And this isn't to say, we're like we make a firm stand with God, we know the truth, but let's say with other things we weren't sure about in the past, or maybe before we come into submission, we can repent from these things. And of course, we get credit. These sins and stuff from the past, when we're living in days of ignorance, we get credit for when we repent. And it means repentance in this meaning. It means to reform and turn away and really be repulsed by these things. You can't just repent. Like like I'm just thinking of the example Brother Suleiman had given about, like, you can't just repent, and then keep boasting or just reiterating how good pork tastes. Like, why you? I mean, pork is disgusting to begin with. And, most of the people I've talked to that quit eating it never liked it to begin with. But if you obviously quit eating pork and you're it's like you miss it or something. Like what it sounded like with this example Brother Suleiman gave about this person. It sounded like that. Like that's not good. You should examine yourself. I mean, this is just an example, but we have to just given the like we have to examine ourselves with whatever it could be applied to. So but that's what it means. Like repent, reform. These things should sins of the past, whatever it was, it becomes repulsive to you because it's putting your hand in the fire. And once you understand that um, that only God is to be worshipped and following His path is the path to happiness, this is what you're going for and going after. But the test isn't over either. We still, in our life, like we still have to, just because we come into submission and we get the message, we still have to, honestly, we have to work more hard than we ever have in our life at growing our souls and then staying on the right path and then and being happy, as a reward. Thinking about God all the time and being comforted by Him is one of the many rewards that can start in this life. Verse 20, I'm gonna kind of speed up here. Miracle of the Quran to be unveiled after Muhammad. They say, how come no miracle came down to him from his Lord? Say the future belongs to God, so wait, and I am waiting along with you. So the footnote for verse 20 is, in retrospect, we see now that the Quran's miracle, indeed one of the greatest miracles, and that's in 74, verse 30 to 35, Surah 74, verse 30 to 35, was divinely predestined to be unveiled 14 centuries after Muhammad. In view of the current condition of the traditional Muslims, if Muhammad had been given this miracle, those Muslims who were already idolizing Muhammad beside God would have worshipped him as God incarnate. Additionally, this miracle is obviously designed for the computer age and to be appreciated by a mathematically sophisticated generation. So, the verse footnote explains this verse very well. Rebellious humans, verse 21. When we bestow mercy upon the people after adversity had afflicted them, they immediately scheme against our revelation, say, God's scheming is far more effective, for our messengers are recording everything you scheme. Right, because, the people that, they're just scheming against their own souls. They're only, and they're allowed to, too, because, such evil people are going to be held accountable, and their punishment is going to be increased, for all the people who distorted the previous scriptures, the people who injected and advocated for the two false verses. Look, they're scheming, but God's scheming is far more effective. So we should never worry about, anything that's happening around the world, like we don't need to worry about anything. We do our part. We stand up, um, for what's right. But as far as like harboring any fear or anxiety, it's not a trait we should have. Because I mean, we're given really good examples that despite their schemes, and I mean, even we're told that there's, another verse is that some of the scheming of these people are sufficient to remove mountains, meaning like it's incredibly insidious and wicked. And um, I mean, it's just the age we're living into. Some of the things I've come across with, you know, just different things. It's very it's freeing not to worry about. You see all the other people worrying about these things. I mean, what we can do, we advocate for righteousness, fight in the cause of God. Mentally through these different systems. As fighting is different today, but also if we have to fight or give up our lives, we should rejoice in such an exchange. Because we're gonna die anyway, and it's not to say like we're gonna go out and do something ignoramus, obviously, but if aggressed upon, we have all the rules of war, and but it hasn't come to that, and God willing, it won't. But because the warfare is far different today, and it's a lot more. It doesn't just because it's not physical fighting doesn't mean it's any easier. I mean, in a lot of ways, it can be. These systems and stuff are a lot more. Um, it's the same. But putting our trust in God, not worrying about these disbelievers, or harboring any fear, because God is aware of them. The messengers, the angels are recording, these evil things that people do. Everything's being recorded. And God's scheme is far more effective. So I mean, just look at like how wicked their schemes were when they added the two verses in. But God's scheme is far more effective. And look, we have a messenger that came with a profound truth, one of the greatest miracles that gives us reassurance. And they still tried to scheme against him, and they failed, miserably. Like they couldn't. The cat was out of the bag. The miracle, it's still in its early stages, but it's God's scheme is the most effective. He's the only, protector against this. He's the one who moves you across the land and sea. You get onto the ships and they sail smoothly in a nice breeze. Then, while rejoicing therein, violent wind blows and the waves surround them from every side. This is when they implore God, sincerely devoting their prayers to Him. If you only save us this time, we will be eternally appreciative. But as soon as He saves them, they transgress on earth and oppose the truth. O people, your transgression is only to the detriment of your own souls. You remain preoccupied with this worldly life, and to us is your ultimate return. We inform you of everything you have done. So I'm kind of over time here, so if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. If I made any mistakes, may God forgive me. Thank you.
MashaAllah, brother. Great study.
Mashallah, brother. Thank you. Mashallah.
So thank you. Good to see you.
So I had a question. What do y'all think about verse 4, the part where it says this is God's truthful promise? This part. He initiates the creation and repeats it in order to reward those who believe and lead a righteous life equitably. Is that what do y'all think about that? Is that talking about this creation, like in things in this worldly life, like plants and other fruits or nice things, or is it talking about like the hereafter?
Sorry, John, can you repeat the question again?
So verse 4, the part where it says he initiates the creation, then repeats it in order to reward those who believe in the righteous life equitably. So the the creation and repeating it, is that that's referring to like the year new heaven and earth, or is that got to be referring to maybe like things of this world, like have nice fruits that are recreated for us to enjoy? You know,
Yeah, it could be all of them.
okay.
Yes, oh no, these were the same verses I read this morning too for chapter 2. Okay.
Mashallah.
Like that John was reading and looking outside at the crack of dawn. So that's so beautiful. God's signs are all around us. I mean, just think about, just like every time I look at the moon, for example, um, and think about like God's design, that part alone to just reflect on. I think the Master of the Covenant also talked about it in great detail about the phases of the moon and how God has designed this system, and how we only see that one side of the moon. And I like how the Master of the Covenant even like demonstrated it in practice, like practically demonstrated how that would work, and what kind of precision would go into establishing something like that that would continue on for like millions of years, and just with so much precision, we're using it to count the years, like in 100 years from now when the night of destiny is going to be, right? It's so precise based on the movement of the moon. So, subhanAllah, this is God's amazing design. And thinking about all of these things and how um, God gives these creations different colors and stuff. I mean, these are, and the night and day, of course. All of these are really powerful proofs for us if we really want to reflect on God. They really rejuvenates our faith in God and His, omnipotence. in what God can do. Like, every creature that we see around us, God has something spectacular for us to reflect on if you think about it. For example, like we have our own mechanisms, with which we're able to find ways and stuff. But then, look at things like elephants and dolphins and how their brains work and how their systems are built. God has those specialized systems for like each and every creation based on their survival and habitat. Like, so that reminds me of also like that video you sent me about the bird that Marcus calls the beer cats, just to get fed. These are all science. Mashallah, that God shows us that he's the intelligence behind all of this.
Mashallah, that's a good, like the moon example. Um, yeah, because even I didn't think about like what you said. Like it's that's amazing. Millions and millions of years, and it's still in the same exact position. Like I was thinking about like how you need to retune like these sometimes engines or machines that have these really 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 tight variances. Like sometimes like thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands of millimeters, or even smaller. And eventually, like after so many revolutions, whether it's whatever type of machine or device or whatever it could be, it needs to be retuned because it eventually goes out of alignment. I mean, after like millions of strokes or rotations. And I mean, we don't see that happening with the moon. I mean, especially something so massive and I mean, astronomically heavy. I mean, who knows the weight of and yeah, like millions of years and still perfectly. That is really, and not just that, then the sun, too, and all these other things that are in precise orbits. But yeah, like only seeing one side of the moon is that is really amazing. Yeah, mashallah, I like the little bird, the little drongo bird. I like that. It's a little. Yeah, mashallah.
So, like everything you shared about the preoccupation with the word of life, right? And I think all of us, all of us are tested through that, like every single day. And the fact that we have to go out our God um, is something that we all have to work on a daily basis to make sure that the world doesn't um, dominate our brain, you and things about this world and our attachment to things of this world, our expectations, whether it's from things and materials or from people, Our happiness should not depend on any of these things, right? Inshallah.
Yeah, very true. Our every day is we're tested like we have to uh, stay on ourselves. You know what I mean? That it makes sense too. Like, well, us with us coming here, how these this it's all part of the test. Like there's a verse I can't think of exactly what it says, but in Surah 18, how we've adorned the things of this world in order to test or distinguish. I'm not sure exactly. I remember, but along those lines, the test isn't easy. I mean, we see how many people are disregarding their covenant, and I mean, also within ourselves, like how many times have we, like, was God our God today? You know, like what about last week? What about the last 5 hours? And you know, um, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say about my opinion as 1019. The people used to be one congregation. So always, when the message messed up, by the Satan, by the people, God always sent the prophet messengers, to purify the message. So if the people, all the people, could be, stay with the purified message, so there will be no different congregation. But every time God sent the messenger or prophet, and after the messenger prophet left, and they disputed, here and there, and they cannot be, the one congregation. So different. That's my understanding. The people used to be one congregation. Yeah, if we stick to the message, the pure message, so always will be one congregation. But when we dispute, we just run away or from that actual message from the scripture, then dispute happen. So we should not be, we should not dispute. We should not go beside the Quran. We have to stick to the Quran always. So there will be always one congregation. Thank you.
Yeah, brother, mashallah. Yeah, you see it like, and it's happened um, every time. Eventually, to all these religions, and every time a messenger or prophet came, like they happened to Moses's people and the people, his generations that came after, and eventually, Jesus, well, Solomon came later, and or was Solomon? Yeah, Solomon came. Yeah. And then Jesus, and I mean, it kept happening, and uh, but I guess it's in a way to affect the test upon people too, because even the messenger, um, I mean, it's not good when these things happen. Like, I mean, because there are people, but like the messenger, the covenant had mentioned that Satan's point of view is going to be represented uh, And really, I think it's to affect the test on people, you know. Like when he announced his messengership, uh, and later on, you know, he realized, like, it became very clear, and he talked about it, how, you know, to see who the people were that are going to drop out and not believe in God's messenger of the covenant. And, you know, also people who claim to believe the Bible, they all dropped out because the God's messenger of the covenant is in there. Him, you know, he prophesies in the book of Malachi and Son of Man, Jesus. Friend, Son of Man isn't Jesus like people like to think. Uh, but their knowledge is confused about the matter. That's why they're all fighting over it. But yeah, we're really blessed to even have this information. Um, and the Quran.
Yeah, same thing also the happening, So that this is the tragedy, human tragedy always. So now we should have only one congregation, the submitter. All submitters should be one community, one congregation. But same thing is, happening again. And people come and say something and dispute it. Same thing, same tragedy.
So I wanted to share something. So we read the verses today about how when the people are in the ships, um, what verses is um,
Verse 22. Um, but there was
yeah,
another
verse
one, I
22.
think. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there's verse 12 and verse 22, but I think they're both. But yeah, the ship
Mm-hmm.
one. 22.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we were reading these verses at dawn during our flight, and in the same flight, like all these people we were in a small plane, and then the plane because of like some bad weather, they couldn't land the plane at the airport, So for like we were supposed to have like a 1 hour flight, and they ended up being like a 3 or 2 hour flight. We just kept circling and circling, and the pilot would just go down towards the airport and like try to land and climb up again, and then make rounds, and people were getting dizzy, and the plane was really noisy, and people were getting really nervous and uneasy and uncomfortable. And after the plane landed, like we had to land at a different airport because we still couldn't land, and the plane pretty much ran out of fuel, and they had to refuel and then go back later. And as soon as they landed at the other airport, then people were just like all calling their families and stuff and saying like how they were nervous and scared. And now we're reading these verses again, subhanAllah. But yeah, I mean, it happens every time, of course. Like, how many of those people will actually think about God, like outside of those situations? And God talks about this here. Um, I mean, I think about people, who say that they don't believe in God, right? But I can assure you that if you sincerely ask them when they really get in a situation like this, where God is talking about when stuff like that happens, that based on their natural instinct, that they do, reach out for help at some point, when they don't see any other way out of desperation, And this is what God is talking about here. That these people, the disbelievers, they do that. But But for us, like, I mean, even asking God for these things is when we did, if we did do that, I mean, it's a worship, right? But the thing is, um, um, the righteous person is the one who is not doing that just during the bad times. We have to. God is teaching us that we have to be with God. We have to worship God through good times as well as the bad times, right? Not just in the bad times or not just in the good times. And the bad times, some people might think that it's easy to worship God in the bad times, but I think for a lot of people, the bad times becomes even more difficult because, there's things like anger and anxiety and nervousness and objection and so many other like unsubmitter, like rebellious type feelings, satanic fear and grief and all of these things, desperation that can take over, right? And so that's why this test is designed to weed out those types of people, and the only people that are really ever going to make it, God willing, are the people who will steadfastly persevere through everything and pass, you know, through all of that, God willing. So, we should remember that always.
Thank you for sharing. That was a good example. Mashallah. Yeah, it shows like God is running everything. There's the verses that you are reading this morning, like and the things that are
Mm-hmm.
happening. Even like when I went to the Friday prayer yesterday, you know, like I got good things out of it, and the things I was hearing too were very
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Um, you know, um, yeah, too. It's also uh, when we implore God for help. Another thing I just wanted to add to that, uh, like these people that don't do, they call out to God, and then after it's relieved, they don't like reflect on or be like, "Oh man, thank you God so much," or
Mm-hmm.
or even maybe a couple days from now, like kind of like what you're doing right now, like you're talking about, and again, remembering God. You could tell a friend about it in a week from now, and then most people are just gonna forget about their imploring, like the verse says. But you know, um, the submitters were gonna remember God and think about God, or even uh, it could be thinking about something that happened a while back or a long time ago, and realize and believe and know that it was God that saved us, out of His mercy, from these things. Yeah, and it's a common thing, like even I was just talking to someone yesterday, and some things are happening, uh, just different things, and they're praying to God and stuff. Hopefully, they're not praying to Jesus. I don't think they are, but they're praying to God is what they said. But like when things get better or become easy, you don't really hear them talk about God or talk or
Mm-hmm.
hear them, um, at least not as often as when adversity or potential uh, adversity comes to people.
Mm-hmm.
So, brother Solomon, so what was your reaction when it was happening? What you did? It's also, I think, long time ago. I was in a boat. It's maybe 30, 40, 30 years before. I think 30, more than 30 years. Yeah, also it's our boat almost about to sink in the river, and people are so quiet. They are praying something. And so I remember it's happened to me one time, and people automatically they always I think most of them, all of them was saying something to God. It's like that. You can have some feelings there over there if you are in that kind of situation, and you have some feelings. So I think Brother Solomon also has experience today. I think Brother Solomon have the same issue again, lost connection maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't hear him. I think that might be the same thing.
And also, if you go to the chronological order of Quran, and Surah 10, revealed, I think, this is 89 Surah actually. It's 10 Surah is 89 Surah. And if you go to the 54, the moon, so that was 15. If you go to the chronological order, it was 15 Surah. So so the 10th surah revealed after so many years, after 54 the moons. But God is saying here, they say, how come no miracle come down to him for his Lord? Say the future. So up to this verse, so there is no miracle, by Prophet Muhammad, no physical miracle. So the traditional Muslim, who is to believe that the Prophet Muhammad, split the moon. So based on the Quran also itself, it's wrong. It's wrong because there is no miracle. They are asking why have he has no miracle, physical miracle that time. So based on the Quran also, their claim is totally, invalid.
Yeah, didn't they? I remember hearing something. They said you're talking about the miracle that they attributed to Muhammad.
Yes, yeah, the traditional Muslim, they believe that Prophet Muhammad split the moon. No, it's
Oh,
wrong.
like yeah, I remember. So they actually believe like he physically caused the moon to split.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like having like superpowers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I,
most of them, the Sunni, Shia, almost all of them, they believe this kind of, the myth, false
mhm.
belief, this. And from the, if they, study the Quran deeply, analyze, they can find the truth even from the Quran. Because this verse 10:20 is revealed after so many years, when they claim that he split the moon. If he, yeah. So from the Quran itself, you know, he did not show that miracle. He did not split the moon.
I think bro, I don't think we had the best connection. I'm not sure.
Okay. I have also one off-topic question today. Like, the mosque is only for the prayer, right? The we build the mosque, or we go only for the, like, maybe we can do the Quran study and just praying. But I see most of the traditional Muslim, they are using mosques for various reasons. Even if before they get married now, so they are going mosques to do the marriage, something like that, and allow the people like politicians go to mosques and do something there, to vote for them, blah blah. So is it allowed to do this kind of thing in the mosques? What's
Um, my understanding is no, like the mosques are dedicated because I'm just thinking of the verses and how the mosques are dedicated to God alone, and so our prayers and stuff, and we can also do contact prayers there, provide if we're driving around, providing like it's not an act of worship in mosque, but yeah, maybe okay, there's input, but yeah, I mean like politicians advocating for themselves and stuff. I wouldn't think like that's okay. Uh,
Mhm.
this has nothing to do with God, and I mean if they want to run a campaign, go do it. Go do it in your own house or go do it rent out, a banquet hall or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like instead of, I mean, what if there's people that are there driving and they're traveling or something, or let's say they live in town, it's a submission mosque, and they want to do their contact prayers, but you have all these people that are crowding them out, essentially by virtue of being there for political reasons and stuff, and it becomes less about God and more about the people's endeavors.
Mhm.
Uh, I think. Uh,
Mhm.
are there people that are doing that you've seen?
Uh, like no, like the traditional mocks, I don't know about the still the submitter community, but the traditional mocks, it's long time practice, I think. And nowadays it's too much. Before it was not that much. Like now, from couple of years, and I see home and abroad, so they use the mocks, to campaign in political things, and also like for gathering the also the marriage things, so you know they believe that when you go to the mosque and marriage and in the mosque and with the imam and blah blah, maybe it is so, you know righteous, something like that they are doing, so before the like actual ceremony, so like and they go to mosque and both of the bride and groom side, and they did all this, the formalities, you
Yeah.
know like dowry set, all of these things inside the mosque.
Well, just thinking about what the messenger said, like everything they're doing is wrong. So I would, I would put that in the same basket. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, true, yeah. Mashallah.
Mashallah. Yeah, it looks like Brother Uthman's trying to, maybe his Wi-Fi can. Uh, yeah, even thinking about the preoccupation part, like we have the example of it was actually discussed yesterday at the prayer, but like Solomon, how he became preoccupied with his horses. I mean, this is Solomon, who had a vast amount of material wealth. Of course, he passed his test and all that, and you know, he represents one end of the testing spectrum, but yeah, so it's good to uh, constantly. It's every day, um, making God our God and not becoming preoccupied. Because too, I think something I noticed recently, like it can happen very slowly if it makes sense. Um, like certain, uh, not that you're giving any less to charity, but for example, you're not spending as much, let's say, in the cause of God uh, that you were 6 months ago or a year ago, and then you begin to think too much about these things, but like these things can happen slowly. I'm just giving an example. If it helps anybody else or other people can relate, but that's just something empirically I've noticed, and so it's always good to reevaluate ourselves, take a step back, and come running back to God, and you know, and help us to make us stronger in our submission.
MashaAllah, brother.
Or are there any off-topic questions from anybody?
I want to say something a little bit, verse 10:10 also. So their prayer therein be you glorified, our God. And so everybody is saying the peace, peace and peace. Because so most people will go, so all the bad people, bad genes will go to hell. So there will be only good people, So then when all of them are good, we know that angels are, all with the sight of God. So those souls are good. And the most bad soul, all bad souls of human and jinn will go to hell. So obviously there will be always everywhere in good and good peace. So this makes sense.
Yeah, like there's no nonsense or or anything bad. That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the other verse where they, you know, how they don't have bad news. They don't have any bad news uh, or any of those things. Mhm.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. So, there's no other comments or questions. We can conclude our study. Thank you all for joining. Our next study will be on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you.